Um, what I want to focus on now is the idea of annotation. Yes. And I want to show you a couple of different things, some of the ways of moving stuff between tiddlers, and then show you an approach to annotation that you can copy into your own space. Okay, so what I've done, the textbook I used the last time I taught this class, I decided not to use it this time, but I'm going to pull out a few essays from that textbook. It's a set of 40 essays about hypertext. And this is the first one I want you to read. And so I'm going to show you how to get it into your own space and work on it and annotate it. Okay. So this is essay 8 from the Van den Dorp book that I'll give you the site to at some point, called Toward the Tabular Text. So what he does is the name of that book is called From Papyrus to Hypertext. And he walks us through in a series of 40 essays the movement of humanity, basically, from writing on papyrus, the scrolls, animal skins, you know, when people would write on that and they put them in these big scrolls and that was their way of writing, through hypertext historically. And in this essay, he begins to introduce this idea of tabular text, which you'll read about, okay? So I'm thinking, well, how do you read? How do people read, and how would they annotate? And we've been playing around with the notion of paragraphs before, and to me, paragraphs are the sort of that's the kernel of meaning in a longer academic or novel, in a longer piece of writing. A sentence is too small, a page is too big, but the paragraph is supposed to have a set of ideas that you can hold on to and grab onto and reflect on. So I took his essay, and I broke it into paragraphs. This essay is 25 paragraphs, and I numbered the paragraphs 8.1, 8.2, etc. Okay. In this particular tiddler, there's nothing to it. Okay, so obviously it's running from a template. So it's got a TOC type called heading, and a TOC heading level H1, which we don't use, and then this thing called the list field. Okay, and list fields are something we haven't played with much. They're particularly powerful and have special meaning within TiddlyWiki. And so the list field currently has, I'll just copy this contents out and show you, but you can probably guess. It's basically got the names of the tiddlers separated by spaces. Because the tiddlers don't have tiddler names don't have spaces in them, they don't need to be bracketed. If they had spaces, they need to be bracketed in order. So here the order actually matters. So I can, through various ways of transclusion, say, get me the first item in the list, the last item in the list, the 7th item in the list, the nth item in the list, and TiddlyWiki will respond to me. It's called an index, and we'll play with it as some of you get more involved in this. But I'm going to use this list field for doing some interesting work. I'm just going to not save this. So clearly I'm looking at the essay template. And this is in the DesignWrite Studio, so you can open up the essay template if you want. And there's lots of stuff in here you haven't seen, so you're welcome to debug it or to reverse engineer it, drag it in and see what you can do with it. And I'm going to show you ways to do that in a second. But all this basically does is shows the 25 paragraphs that are, this is the line I want you to see. List filter equals list current filter. So it just goes and gets all of the tiddlers that are on the list of the current tiddler. They could all be tagged with this and it would accomplish much the same thing, but list implies an order and tags don't. So when you list filter tag to something, you have to sort them by something, but here you can impose an order on it. So that's a useful thing to do sometimes, and that's pretty much how you do it. I think you'll recognize this. Link current tiddler link. It builds a link to the current tiddler. And then this transclude puts the contents of the text field and displays it. Okay, and you've seen these before. And so now when we're looking at the essay, when I click on 8.1, it will take me to the tiddler called 8.1. And if we look at the contents of this, it's top type paragraph. So it's named a paragraph, and it's just got the contents of it, nothing else. So not surprisingly, this is probably running on a paragraph template, which of course it is. And the template starts right here. So this filter is current field : top type paragraph, means that this template is going to apply to this tiddler. This stuff you've not seen this kind of notion before. I wrote a couple of macros that only apply to this template, so I just threw it into the template. And you're welcome to try and get those macros if you'd like and try and debug them. The first one is we're going to use to generate an annotation, and the next one is I'm going to come back to the paragraph. The next one is what's generating this navigation bar. Okay, I'm really fond of this first, previous, next, last work. To me, that kind of interesting. And I'm going to show you another student's project from last year that uses that first, previous, next, last extensively. You're all familiar with that first, previous, next, last navigation thing. You know, I think it showed up for the first time on CD players. Right, so you went to the first track, the last track, the previous track, and the next track. And you see it in all sorts of different places now. First, previous, next, last. I would imagine that none of you have ever seen multiple first, previous, next, last, or FPNL navigations, multiple navigations on a single object. But I'm going to show you that in a few minutes. Right now, we're just doing one. So you can navigate to the next paragraph. If you set the, what's this called? This is called the, I forget what it's called, where you can change it from Zoom to Classic. I forget the name of the tool. Story View. If you change the Story View, thanks. Yeah, if you change the Story View to Zoom, close the sidebar. This is not, this is kind of, to me, an interesting way to read. So you're just reading by paragraph. So that's all you have on the screen. And so my sense is it focuses your attention on what's in that paragraph as opposed to reading the whole page. I'm kind of intrigued with this as a tool for readers. You know, maybe all of the academic texts that you read for classes would be better off presented this way, where you're only seeing one paragraph at a time. Clicking the essay 8 will take you back to the full essay. So you can bounce back and forth between paragraph mode and essay mode. There's no previous button because there's nothing previous to 8.1. I think if you go to last, there should be no next button because there's nothing next. If I were a better programmer, I wouldn't even let the last button be visible when I'm on the last paragraph, because that's dumb, right? You click last, it's just going to take you where you are. But I didn't spend my time doing that. What's different is I built this button, and that's what I was just finishing. This is actually from a larger project that I played with last year, but I've abandoned temporarily. And clicking a button, I wanted to show you, just to get you started, you can choose to either use this as a tool or you can choose to use this as a way to build the tool. And you can blame Steve for this because he showed me that he did this last week. So as soon as one student discovers this, then I have to show everybody how to do it. It's your fault, Steve, right? Because you were starting to build buttons.
Thank you.
Yeah, right? So I click on New Annotation. And what New Annotation does is creates a new tiddler. gives it a standard name, new tiddler 5, because obviously I built new tiddler 1, 2, 3, and 4. It tags it with the name of the tiddler from whence you came. Does the same thing as that new here button. And I could have just done new here, and it would have done exactly the same thing, except it also adds the tag called annotation. So this is built into TiddlyWiki. There's a new journal button, and there's a new journal here button. And new journal here creates new journal from the tiddler you're on and tags it with journal. So I did the same thing here, basically. New tiddler, tag it with the tiddler you're on, plus the tag annotation. Okay. And so from here you can type, you know, whatever your annotation is going to be. You know, like this is a great paragraph. I like it. I'm going to ask you to think about tagging it, say, linking, if he talks about linking. Linking because, well, because, right? That's not a very good annotation. And I'll save it. While I'm in story view mode zoom, closing the current tiddler has the effect of bringing me back to the previous one. So it's kind of like a back button. Takes you back if you want. And I also had a tag there. I could have gone there. Okay. Notice now what we've done. I'm going to go back to new tiddler 5 and give it a better title. And I'll go back to 8.1. Is that we're now listing the annotations with links that we've created to that paragraph. So now we're beginning to build sort of a more robust annotation system. And this is the first app or interface that I built other than the standards that come into the wiki. And this was your first opportunity to say, well, do I want to build something like that, or do I want to use something? So at some point in this assignment or this level of class, you can choose whether you want to be primarily a reader or primarily a writer who's using existing tools, or if you want to go, and a lot of the game design students might want to do this because you're presumably more interested in building things than writing things. So now I'm beginning to build an interface, okay, as well as a technique for reading. So if I do another, this is yet another save it and close it, they both get listed. So all of my annotations to each paragraph are going to get listed on that paragraph. Okay. And that's it. So let's just take a really quick look and see how that's happening. So paragraph template, I'm going to show you this, not expect you to do it, but just show it to you. The action happens down here in, where's the close button? Right here. So this macro call line calls a macro called annotate. First, it opens a button. So we create a button. It then calls the macro called annotate, and then whatever text is left hanging out there becomes the label of the button. And when you click that button, it does the code that's inside the button command, button / button. So mine is called new annotation of whatever the variable currently is, paragraph, which is the name of the current tiddler. Calls the macro annotate, which sits up here, and it uses this. Somebody's chatting. Is that James? Your battery's at 22%. Thanks, James. This is what Steve discovered. I think you discovered. Oh, you did set field. Okay. So this is a send message. The message is called new tiddler. If you don't give it a title, it's going to be titled whatever, new tiddler 5, 4, 3, whatever. And I set the tags to be equal to annotation and the variable called $ from tiddler. Okay. From tiddler comes with the macro name, And if you go back down here where it's called, it's right here. So I set the value of from Tiddler to the name of the paragraph. So you can spend your time and kind of track it through. And the way that I learn how to do this stuff is I change things and see what happens. But you'll see that because I knew that the paragraph was 8.1, I passed the parameter 8.1 to the macro, and it sets the tags to be the word annotation and the value of from Tiddler, which is 8.1. So that's how I'm creating something with those tags. So that's all kind of cool, I think. You're welcome to play with that and mess with that. What I'd also like you to do is go to my Tiddler called Annotator, and in one of your own wikis, bring all those tiddlers over to import all those tiddlers with those two templates, and then you'll have this functionality in your own wiki. Okay. There are 25 paragraphs, the essay, Tiddler, and 2 templates. So that's 25, 26, 27, 28. And I don't really want you wasting your time dragging and dropping 28 separate tiddlers, because that's dumb and a waste of your time. So I want to show you how to do this. They're all tagged conveniently to Annotator. And oh, there's 28 tiddlers that are tagged to Annotator. So if you run an advanced search, you run a filter on tags Annotator, we're going to grab them all up in a single file and then import that file. Okay, there's an export button there. It says export tiddlers. We're going to export them as a JSON, and JSON is a fairly familiar format for all sorts of different uses. I have no idea what it stands for. JSON. Anybody seen JSON in their life before?
Heavy Rain.
Where?
Heavy Rain.
Heavy Rain, JSON?
It's a video game that's well known for the fact that there's a scene where you just press X repeatedly to call for Jason.
Jason. Okay, there you go. I forget what JSON is. It's a standard format that we use a lot. If you export it as a JSON, it's going to, depending on how you have your browser set, mine just automatically downloads it to a fixed location. And obviously, I've done this 8 times before, so now it's called tiddlers9.json. I can go to any other wiki that I have. Like objects2.tiddlyspot.com. Who know? Oh, dogs in my life.
It stands for JavaScript Object Notation.
Thank you. I knew it was something like that. Click on the import button, which before you've only used to import a spreadsheet, and go find your JSON file and import them, and they all import, we hope. Search for essay 8, and I should have my essay. I should be able to go here, and I should be able to create new annotations, and it works. Okay, so that's a really simple, convenient way to move bunches of tiddlers around that you can somehow grab together on a filter. Okay, so what I'm going to ask you to do is do that, either an existing wiki or a new wiki. Import all those 28 tiddlers. Read that essay. Annotate it. Your annotations, you can write whatever you'd like. What would make sense to me is as you're reading through that essay, and I'm going to set up 2 or 3 more of these. I just was late getting it done. So I'll set up a couple more of these, and you can import them later. If you make a bunch of annotations and then create a new JSON file and import it, it's not going to overwrite your annotations, right? Because I don't know what you're going to call your annotations, so we're not overwriting them. All the tags will be the same. I would like to see you begin thinking about tagging them with linking, tagging, transcluding, listing, and templating. My sense is that Van den Dorp talks about all those concepts. He doesn't call them that, but he talks about them. And so it would be interesting to use those tags And then we're going to start using that as a way for you to write an essay or a paper, or obviously not a paper, but to write an essay in TiddlyWiki about hypertext using some of this as input material. Once you've got this basic logic down, you can do the same thing with any article that you find. Bring it in, split off the paragraphs, tag them as paragraphs, and I'll help you with that. And we can figure out ways to make your own paragraphs work, or you can just use the ones that I'm going to provide for you, which is probably going to be easier. Okay. Start with this, see if it works, and then begin to think about how you would construct an essay about linking, tagging, transcoding, templating, and listing. Okay, using outside external sources. So that's the bibliographic, that's what I call the bibliographic exploration exercise, which I didn't write instructions out for yet because I'm running way behind. So why don't you spend 10 minutes seeing if that all works, and if it does, then we'll talk about how to extend it, and if it doesn't, then we'll talk about how to fix it. Okay, so I'm going to stop.